K. Ramsey, here to talk about when your children trigger you. Many of my topics are fun and enlightening and all these other things, and this one's not that fun because it's your kids back-talking you or saying ugly things or trying to power over you, and it's not fun. Okay, but it's a big question, and someone asked it this week, so I will be happy to dive into it. So, probably this will be a two-part thing because this is impossible to answer all in one. Definitely, this is a case-by-case situation, right? So, the people I'm working with in my group coaching session or private, I'm very strategic in their specific case. So this is a case-by-case situation because every kid's different, right? And depending on their age and depending on how long you've been out of the relationship or what the situation with their dad is, it can be tricky. But there's some general rules and some general guidelines that I would love to share with you. Kids align with the person in power. Kids tend to align with power. If you decide to leave the relationship, you have got to get back your power. If they see one parent as the powerful one and they see one parent as the weak one, quote unquote, they will try to practice power on the parent they consider weak. It sucks. I hate it. I wish that was not the answer. I wish, you could be good, kind, loving, and forgiving to your kids and just give, and try to do the right thing by being extra loving and extra giving, which is what most of you try to do. I definitely work with a lot of clients. Most of my clients are in their 50s. And so this is like a lot of older and adult children at this point. But I had a coaching call with a private client today, and she was talking about her 6-year-old. And I said, "You are not his servant. You are not his servant. You are not his servant." And when we feel sorry for our kids and feel sorry for what they've been through and feel sorry for giving them a crappy parent, if that's the case, you can tend to try to make it up to them by the things you're already good at, which is being more giving and more kind and more loving and, having softer boundaries, right? Because that's what you were doing in your romantic relationship, okay? So that's very natural for you. That's very easy. And you think, okay, they just need love. They're going through a hard time. I feel guilty because I gave them this situation with their dad. And my advice to you is children align with power because it makes them feel safe. And it's appropriate for children to practice their own power in life, right? That's why sometimes teenagers backtalk. That's why kids, tussle on the playground. Some practice of power is appropriate, okay? But in your situation, if you've been triggered, right? Because they're acting just like, you're like, oh my gosh, they're acting just like their dad. They're acting just like their dad. And you fall, if you've not seen, read my article on intuition versus trauma, when they say something and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just like their dad, you can feel as if you're falling down a pit of helplessness. And you're like, what do I do? What do I say? How can you do this? And it's like rage, but then it's guilt, and then it's, you feel nasty and you're angry, but then you don't want to lose them and you're terrified. Okay? I get it. The best way to help your children is to be able to build an emotional cushion around yourself and to have a life outside of your children. And I have had so many private clients mad at me about that conversation sometimes, and one of them's probably listening right now knowing I'm talking about her, and I'm sending her love. And from our very first conversation, I said, you have to have a life outside of your children. You have to have a life outside of your children. It's going to ruin your kids. This week, I got an email from a sweet lady who was talking about, I think the name of the email was like, I found the love of my life. And she said, oh, I found the love of my life too. My girls, and I'm just, focused on them, and I am into them. And I was like, oh, that poor lady. She thinks she's doing the right thing. But your children being the center of your universe is not the right thing. It did not go well with their father, And it is not, there's no spouse that's going to do that for them. Their teacher is not going to do that for them. Their boss is not going to do that for them. The world is not going to bend over and make your daughter the pretty princess or your son Prince Charming. And I know this is like hard things I'm saying. But if you use the same strategies that you used in a toxic relationship to get him to love you, and you think that's your natural bent, that's what you're naturally, good at, being good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving. And if you do that same strategy with your kids, they are going to walk all over you. They are going to walk all over you. Now, I also want you to make decisions as much as possible based on if this was a normal situation, like a kid, they want to go to camp and their dad arranged the camp, and you're like, God, I'm not giving him my week. I don't want to send him to camp. Like, he shouldn't have my week, okay? If the child wants to go, in most cases, if you can say yes, anytime you can say yes to your child, that it's not you being the servant to your child, is a good thing, because it gives them choices, especially older children, especially teens. It's always better to say, would you rather do A, B, or C versus no, and here's what I'm saying, and your dad shouldn't steal my time, and how dare he, blah, 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 blah. That's never going to go well. Never, 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 ever going to go well. Okay? It triggers you, and it triggers them, and they think how unfair my life is because my parents are in this situation, and then they're forced to kind of choose sides, right? Which is a big fat mess. So you cannot be your kids' servants. It will not make it better. It will not make up for what happened, and it will not prepare them for the world. They need to see you as a person of power. You need to build your emotional cushion around yourself so that they are not the only thing going on in your life. If they are the only thing going on in your life and they are the one thing your ex has to trigger you, he is still, or she is, they are still going to be in control. If it's a toxic parent and the one thing they can get to you through is your kids, and your kid is the only thing going on in your life, and I know in some circumstances it feels like, when I got that email, and she was like, oh, my kids are my life. Like, I am sure she's thinking she has done the right thing. There is a friend that I have, I created this program for her, and she has never gone through it, and she doesn't know that. And she was in her 50s. This is probably why I have so many women in their 50s go through. And she made her children her life. I saw her go through divorce. She made her children her life. And her son one day looked at her and he said, you got out, but you didn't get happy. And it broke my heart. And I thought, her kids needed to see a happy version of her. They needed to see a life well lived. They needed to not have the pressure of living both their life and her life. And that's really what it was. And that's really what it ends up. If you make your kids your life, then you need them to make you feel better. And that is a dangerous, dangerous game. It's dangerous for your kids because it's a ton of pressure to put on them. And it's dangerous for their future because then they hold all the power, right? Like you need them. And we want our kids. We love our kids. We love our babies. But they need to see you as the person in power. They need to see you as the person who's like, oh, your dad's not going to mess with me. He may pull this crap with other people. He's not going to mess with me. I'll stand in for you. I'll stand. That's the goal. That's the goal. And for your kids to see you happy and healthy, and you in not in a revenge type way, but just you in your own personal power, where, they don't think it's like, I'm not walking over my mama. She's tough. Like, she's brilliant. She's awesome. She's amazing. Not, she's my servant who feels guilty and who needs me and who I do all kinds of, I can get away with whatever because I'm who she needs, and she can't function without me. Not that we ever want to function without our kids. It's a roundabout way to keep your kids, to keep in a relationship with them, to have a healthy relationship with them. I do not like to use the word codependency in my training, and I hardly ever do. But you want your kids to be their own person, right? and their own individual person, and you show them what it means to stay in their power, rather than hoping they don't turn out like you, or hoping they don't turn out like their dad. So it is a case-by-case basis, but definitely one of the things that would be very appropriate to say is, if there is back talk, I don't let people talk to me like that anymore. Okay? If they watched you get talked like that with your ex or with their dad or something, it's very appropriate to say, I don't allow people to talk to me that way anymore. Because they saw you get talked that way. So if you said, I don't allow people to talk to me that way, they might not believe you. But if you say, I don't allow people to talk to me that way anymore, you are signaling to them there is a new game happening. There are new rules. There's a new playbook, and you are standing in your power. And that will make your babies feel so, so safe. And that's the goal. You want them to feel safe. You want them to feel whole. You want them to feel healthy. You want them to feel happy. And so for that to happen, you have to be your own whole person. And then you bring them into your world and you enter into their world. You don't need them to make your world okay. You can show up as a whole parent because you don't want to start bending who you are so they don't get mad at you. You've already played that game. You played that game with your ex. It's probably why it's toxic. It's probably why you're not together. If you start playing that game with your kid, it's going to cycle through and cycle through and cycle through and cycle through. You've got to find a new normal. You've got to find a new way of living and loving and showing up for your kids. So that's a lot of information. And so I'll definitely do a part 2 on that because we do need to be the safe place for our kids to land, especially if the toxic person cannot be. So sometimes that involves, taking maybe a little bit extra that you might not normally would have because they cannot process their emotions maybe at the other parent's house. But do not be your kid's doormat. Do not be your kid's doormat. Do not be your kid's doormat. They align with strength. The more strength you show, the safer your children will feel. Okay, so I'll leave it with that and then head to part 2 soon. Have a great day.